Hey guys, I'm Richard Fitzgerald. This is Dubai Works, where we interview the business leaders making a difference in this great city. So we're recording this on Thursday afternoon, as Friday is a holiday in the UAE on the Prophet's birthday, peace be upon him. I hope you're all enjoying a long weekend. This week there was the Arab Media Forum, and also our business turned down a $12 million valuation of Augustus Media. I didn't expect it to be leaked, but one of the local newspapers picked that up. And but we're happy. We weren't looking for investment, and we're happy to continue to grow. And we think the future's bright. And as is the theme on a lot of these shows and a lot of the founders that we speak to, everyone's really optimistic about the outlook in the region. So we're another 6th straight profitable year for the business, and we're reinvesting, and we continue to launch and roll out new Lovin cities. There's 20 now, and a streaming service and everything like that. But enough about us. I think you'll love this story today. Enjoy the conversation. Welcome back to another episode of Dubai Works Business Podcast. Today we're joined by Adnaan Jassat, the founder and CEO of Thriller, the largest marketplace for sneakers and apparel in the Middle East. Good morning, Adnaan.
Morning, Rich. Pleasure to be here.
Thanks for coming on the show.
Anytime.
So tell us a bit about Thriller.
Yeah, so Thriller is an online marketplace for sneakers and now recently apparel. We function similar to a stock market where we have two types of people that come onto the marketplace. We have buyers and we have sellers. Buyers don't typically just purchase on our marketplace, but they place bids as well. And sellers can come and place asks. And when a bid and ask meets, that's how a transaction happens with us. So we function very similarly to a stock market in the sense that all the sneakers and apparel are not just your regular sneakers and apparel, but they're limited edition collectibles. They hold value. Sometimes they go up, sometimes they go down. That's why our concept was built. It's so that people can have the best chance of acquiring these sneakers or apparel for the fairest price possible on our marketplace.
So you would describe it as an e-commerce marketplace?
Yes.
And how do you, usually in a marketplace people can upload whatever they want to sell. How do you make sure that they're what you just described?
So we have a set list of products. We got about 3,000 items that we allow trading on our marketplace. And any seller can choose to sell any one of those 3,000 items. We already have the images set up and the description set up, so you don't need to do any of that. There's no taking pictures, there's no filling out descriptions, entering the condition, because every item that we sell is brand new in the original condition. So all you have to do is tell us which size you're selling and the price that you'd like to get for it, and then we do the rest.
And can you just explain how that works? Because if I'm reselling sneakers, how do you know that I haven't worn them?
Yeah. So let's say that you and me are the buyer and seller in the transaction. So you become the seller, I become the buyer. I would go onto the marketplace and purchase the sneaker. Now you would get notified that your sneaker is sold. What do you do next? You then package your sneaker and send it to our authentication warehouse. So we have an authentication warehouse with authentication specialists and verifiers that actually inspect your item physically. So they say, okay, Rich has sent the item. Now I have to check if it's authentic. I have to check if it's brand new. Is the box damaged? Is the sneaker used? Is there anything missing? Are there a pair of laces here that's not supposed to be here? We check all of these things, and once we've determined that okay, this pair is authentic, is as described, brand new, then we ship it out to me as the buyer.
And in sneakers and other apparel, people who do this are collectors, right? So the buyers and sellers, the sellers are usually collectors who they know it's in their interest to have the value high to keep these in mint condition.
Yes.
So, I was going to ask what's the return rate, but actually this isn't a second-hand store because people know what they're doing. They're sending you premium.
So ideally you'd think the return rate would be low, but actually it's quite the opposite. So yes, it's not a second-hand store in the sense that these are pretty loved or used items, but I'll give you an example. There was a Jordan that dropped about 2 weeks ago. Now that Jordan, you could buy it from the retailers for 1,000 dirhams, it's now selling for 3,500 dirhams.
So this is a new release by Air
It's a
Jordan
new
by
release.
Nike. Yeah.
But make no mistake, we also sell retro releases like from the 1980s and 90s, Jordan's 90s, and those go for significant amounts. I think the most expensive sneaker that we have on our marketplace is a 1985 Air Jordan 1 that's selling for 45,000 dirhams. So these are high ticket items. But we also, our sneakers start at about 700 dirhams. So we have all ends of the spectrum.
And the drop you were explaining?
The drop I was explaining, that's a recent release. It came out about 3 weeks ago. So like I said, from the retailers it's 1,000, and now I think our average market price on Thriller is about 2,500, 3,000, something like that.
Okay, and the return rate, or they were new, so they were just bought probably in a store or online. People get them, and then they're still...
So people buy them and they keep them. They don't use them, they just leave them untouched. And then ideally the day they buy them, then they upload them onto our marketplace or maybe other marketplaces, and they try to figure out where's the place I can get the best return for my item. And like I said, let's say you had a chance to buy that sneaker. You'd buy it for 1,000 and then you put it up for 2,500. Then someone would make a bid for 2,000. Now it's up to you to accept. Is that a reasonable amount or not? And if you accept, then you can accept the bid all by yourself. The transaction happens as I spoke before, and that's how it works.
The transaction happens in terms of the warehouse, but is there an escrow to protect the buyer before they receive it?
So as soon as the transaction happens, we hold the buyer's amount in escrow with us, and then at the same time, the seller ships the item to us, and at one stage we hold both the sneaker and the amount. So that way both parties are protected. And then once we verify that the seller side has checked out, we release the funds to the seller minus our percentage, and then we release the goods to the buyer.
And the turnaround time of that is usually...
Turnaround time is between 2 and 5 days.
And your percentage is?
Our percentage for sneakers is 10%, and then we recently started selling apparel. Our percentage for that is 14%.
Okay, is there a reason why?
Apparel items usually have a lower ticket value, so our average sneaker value is about 1,000 dirhams. Our average apparel is about 500 dirhams.
Makes sense to have a different rate. Okay, cool. And so tell us a little bit about you and how you set this up.
Yeah, so I started it when I was about 18. We had a very small team. I mean, we still have a fairly small to medium-sized team, but I started when I was 18. I started because I was collecting sneakers since I was 15. So I was in the industry for a very long time. I know exactly what it takes to secure a very expensive sneaker or a very limited edition sneaker. And I was the guy waiting in lines for 2 days to get a pair of sneakers, not necessarily to sell, but for myself. And then eventually I just succumbed to buying from other marketplaces that were out there, because I realized that marketplaces were the only true way to get the item that you wanted, because every item was always in stock and for the lowest price possible. And that's when it hit me that we've been buying, everyone in UAE and Saudi has been buying from marketplaces in the US and China and Japan, and there's nothing of the sort in UAE. So that's when I started it. We started just as a beta test to see how the response was, and the response was phenomenal. This was about 2 years ago, and then we fully fledged started about a year and a half ago, 18 months ago, and from then we've just seen enormous growth, a lot of traction picked up, and not only in the sneaker market, but anything limited edition. So that's why we expanded from sneakers into apparel as well.
Okay, and so the process of going into the e-commerce, like building that and building a marketplace, because the marketplace itself can be simple enough. It can be a tech-based website, but then to get sort of the supply and demand there, how is that process?
Yeah, so the marketplace is quite complex in the sense that, as I explained, this whole buyer-seller journey with the authentication and the seller pickups, that all happens through the marketplace, right? There's no third party or physical application. It's all through the marketplace. But to answer your question, to get demand from both buyers and sellers, when it comes to buyers, we're very big on social. So we get most of our buyers from Google and from Facebook and Instagram. But we also work with a lot of big brand endorsers. So we have very big brand endorsers that are endorsing our marketplace and making sneakers appeal to our demographic, because the people who buy sneakers are not your 40 or 50-year-olds that are going into stores and buying sneakers. we target people from 18 to 30. So it's a fairly young population, and the best way to reach that young population is
Online.
is online and to get brand endorsers that appeal with what they think and what they believe. So we work with a lot of rappers, we work with a lot of singers, actors, football players. We work with anyone that has a true link to a young person, and we have them endorse our brand and our products, and that's the main way that we currently acquiring buyers onto our marketplace.
So how would that work? They would say that they think this is a cool place, or they actually transact and sell their things there, or people can buy their sneakers or apparel?
Yeah, so let me give you an example. We recently worked with Jason Derulo. So obviously 99% of young people know who that is, and we had him sit down and we had him actually walk you through how the marketplace works, and he went and bought an item, and then the sneakers were delivered to him, and then we had a collection the next day called Jason Derulo's Picks. So that was the sneakers that Jason Derulo went onto the website and bought. And then obviously people were like, I want what Jason Derulo bought. So then they went onto the collection that said Jason Derulo Picks, and there was
the same one.
Exactly.
Yeah, fair enough. And so talk about that. So how old are you now?
Now I'm 20.
20. So wow. So well done. So 2 years in. How did you fund this? Are you in university, and how does that work?
Yeah, so I finished school at 18. It's all been bootstrapped. It's all been self-funded as up until a few months ago. We raised our first round of investment. It's still going through actually, but our first round of investment actually is going to project us into not only becoming the largest marketplace in the Middle East, which we already are, but becoming the largest marketplace for sneakers and apparel in the whole MENA region. So currently, we do have a few competitors that are winning, that are beating us when it comes to number of sneakers sold, the number of apparel sold. But with our new round of investment, it should put us over the top.
Can you say how much that is? Or
I can't say as of now.
Roughly, what sort of valuation are you?
Roughly, we valued at something. I'll just give an estimate about between 3 and 6 million.
Okay, so the stage, and then how do you know that you are that big? And you use metrics there like number of sneakers you sell?
We use metrics like GMV. That's the main metric that marketplaces are valued at. And we use a couple other metrics, but since the investment round is still ongoing, I wouldn't like to talk too much about.
What's your sale volume? How many people are on the site?
Yeah, so our monthly active users is 50,000. We get about 50,000 monthly active users on site. In terms of buyers, we have I think 75,000. Last time I checked, about 75,000 buyers signed up. And in terms of sellers, we have over 6,000 sellers. So these are 6,000 individual sellers that have one or more items to sell.
Okay, and what else, running a marketplace, Adnaan, what are the other things that you as a founder need to think about? We talked about marketing, the tech team. Are they here, and how do you kind of do that?
Yeah, so our marketing team is all based in Dubai. Our tech team, we have a team of about a dozen developers that are currently working on the marketplace. We have 2 developers here, and the rest are based in Pakistan and Ukraine. We sort of split them up between them. But our marketing team is here. Marketing is I would say one of the main pillars that we focus on. So most of our marketing team is based here. The rest of our social team is based here. And obviously our authentication warehouse and specialists are all based here.
And how have you been able to sort of like bootstrap it or make it profitable with marketing, tech, and the 10% will only come to you later? So the sort of cash flow, and how are you running that?
Yeah. So initially, we were struggling a bit with the cash flow because we were only making 10%, and our average order value is 1,000 dirhams. So that's about 100 dirhams, 100 dirham percentage of every sneaker that's sold. So the best way we figured out how to better increase cash flow and get a positive cash flow was to spend less on the development side, because we already have a working marketplace. We already have the whole system in place. So now it's just a matter of plug and play with our marketing team. So we decided to take out most of our spend when it comes to website development and marketplace development, and we decided to put it all into marketing spend. And we just worked really hard to secure the highest return on ad spend as possible, and then that's when we started seeing positive cash flow.
Okay, and can you be profitable with? Are you
Yeah,
profitable?
yeah, we're profitable at the moment.
Okay, that's amazing. So, so Triller, basically, you kind of described that you want to be the leading one in a marketplace. Will you ever have your own product, or will you ever be more than a marketplace and have your own e-commerce as well?
Yeah, I mean, it could come to the stage where we start partnering with brands that we currently selling and make a product of our own. But I think the long-term vision would be to not only limit ourselves to become a marketplace for sneakers and apparel, but to become the marketplace for anything limited edition, whether that's collectible baseball cards, whether that's collectible signed memorabilia, whatever it may be. Our ideal goal is to become the marketplace, the biggest marketplace for anything collectible or limited edition or in that space.
Yeah, and that's how the brand can get known for something as well. And there,
Yeah.
globally, is there any market value on collectibles, limited edition collectibles? Like, is it a category? Like, say, art is a category or something like that, or are drops and reselling drops and art and sneakers and things like that and apparel? Is there a total addressable market in terms of value there?
Well, when you say total addressable market, you're talking about sneakers or anything collectible?
Just in general, how would investors look at this? Would they sort of say, because, I know there are some platforms like this in the US who are well known and they do drops and they're kind of premium collectibles. Like, how do they know that there's a market there other than saying, okay, kids are into this.
Yeah.
We know that kids like sneakers,
Yes.
but how do we know that there's actually commercial opportunity?
So the way to find out, I mean, sneakers, we've already determined that there is an addressable market to go for. But I mean, if we're looking to expand into a certain category, let's take baseball cards as an example, and we want to find out, we want to pitch to investors that, okay, baseball cards is the next category that we want to put onto the platform. I think firstly you'd need to look at if there are any smaller marketplaces or smaller online stores, or physical stores that are actually reselling that type of item, in this case baseball cards. Check in your region, check in other regions. It might not be big in Dubai, but it might be huge in Qatar, for example. And you go on and you check, okay, there's 10 stores within a 5-mile radius that all cater for baseball cards. There must be something there, but in Dubai there's nothing. So then you can actually work out that, okay, there is an addressable market in Qatar for baseball cards, but there is none in Dubai, so we're just going to focus on baseball cards in Qatar only, and then we found out that in another region that there's also an addressable market, so we're going to focus on there. I think you just have to find out if other people are taking advantage of whatever product you're looking to sell or load onto the marketplace. And if you find that market, then you just do a bit of research into who else is tapping into that opportunity. And once you find that opportunity, then you can leverage off that.
Interesting. And did you do that with sneakers or apparel? Did you do market entry into, say, a GCC country that you knew something would do well in?
Yeah, we did. And we found that the top 2 in the Middle East was UAE and Saudi. So UAE, as I explained, since I was about 15, there were lines. I'm sure you've even seen there were lines outside Dubai Mall and Mall of Emirates. And whenever there was a sneaker drop, you just see huge crowds. Stores, the stores that would do this would actually release the number of raffle entries that they would get. So to give you an example, if there was a sneaker that they only had quantity of 10,000 sneakers, there was a raffle entry of something close to 800,000 entries. So there's 800,000 people who wanted 1,000 pairs of sneakers. So we sort of looked at that data like that, metrics like that, and determined that UAE was the best place to start something like this.
And how much of it is young people like you as a 15-year-old, buying for yourself versus how much of it is people collecting? And do you have a breakdown of your, say, 50,000 or 75,000? Do you know who are people who actually just want to get a limited edition sneaker for their own personal interest versus people who are in the business?
Yeah. So in terms of people who are avid sneaker collectors who want a pair to add their collection, I would say about a good 30% of our customer base is made up of sneaker collectors like that. So not necessarily sneaker collectors, any type of collectors. And then the rest would be just people who have a genuine interest and like of sneakers, and they're either buying it from themselves or for their family or friend. that makes up the rest of our customer base.
And they'll wear them.
And they'll wear them, yeah. But the people who would, if you're talking about the people who would take the sneaker, put it in a glass box and just leave it there, I'd say that's maybe about 5 or 10% of the people that we sell to.
Yeah, and like we know in Dubai, we know, say, Rashid Bilhassa, Money Kicks, like he made the sneaker thing well known. He was always doing these things and wraps on cars and things like that. So is that a fair reflection? Would you say, like, I'm a bit older now, kind of double your age, but you know, when I was in school, kids weren't necessarily talking about premium drops and things like that. It was kind of like, oh, I got a new pair of shoes, but it wasn't necessarily all about limited edition. How widespread is this? Like, if we asked like 20, 15-year-olds now, how many of them would put their hand up and say that they've asked their parents or they've tried to get a limited edition themselves?
Yeah, so for the first part, in about the 80s or 90s, it wasn't so mainstream like how it was now. I mean, at that stage, I'm sure the names like Patrick Ewings and Jordans came up at your time, right? And those were big then, but obviously it's no match to what the stage we're at now. But in terms of how many kids in high school or university that are actually asking their parents, I need to get this limited edition drop, can you give me the sneaker? I would say all, if not 90% of kids would have at least tried to get a sneaker in that space.
Fascinating. And then do the brands then cater to that? Because yes, Jordans are always the famous one that's always collectibles, but are other brands doing drops? I think Yeezys were doing that, and then other brands, do they do that as well?
All the big sports brands have started doing it, from Nike and Jordan to Adidas Yeezy to New Balance to even like the likes of Puma, which you would never think to enter the space, but
and then there's collabs between the luxury brands.
You're right. Yes, like Prada and Adidas, or Gucci and Adidas, or something like that. Jordan and Dior. Now, if you look at the spectrum of brands, I mean, you got top tier luxury brands like Dior, and then you got a low to medium end brand like Nike or Jordan. You'd never think that the two would actually merge. And then you got Prada, and then you got Adidas. And so these are brands from totally different ends of the spectrum. They don't cater for the same market at all. But yet they're doing these collaborations. And when you ask yourself why, you find out that the limited edition space and the collectible space and the feeling or the attention that you get from releasing something limited in a capsule or whether it's just through a raffle puts a higher value on not only your products that you're selling, but your brand image as well. Because now you can walk into Dior and buy everything off the shelves, but you could never get the Dior Jordan. That's gone. There was only 8,000 pieces made. There'll be no more. So all brands from low tier to top tier are all embracing this luxury, limited edition, collectible market.
And what about the apparel? So what are the popular apparel items that people...
Yeah, so it's mainly streetwear brands. I don't know if you've heard of like Fear of God, Palm Angels, Billionaire Boys. These are the type of brands that we sell. Supreme, I'm sure you've definitely heard of. So it's all these streetwear brands, mostly that emerged from America, and same style. They introduce a very limited amount of pieces. Those pieces get sold out, and then they resold on marketplaces like ours.
And so they're aware of the marketplaces, and that goes back to my earlier question. Like, would they ever go direct to the marketplace? Like, what? So they release it on their website or in their store, knowing full well that...
Are you talking about retailers?
Yeah, the brand.
Yeah, okay.
So they would release it on their website or their store, knowing that the marketplaces industry exists.
Yes.
And would they want to, would they want a cut of that, or is that just the way the industry works?
Yeah, so let me put it simply. Brands don't like resellers. Their goal is to get their products into the hands of people that will actually wait. So they definitely know. Look, Nike and Jordan is the biggest brands when it comes to releasing limited edition quantity. And they know full and well that they could easily make 50,000 of the same piece or 100,000 of the same piece so that all their sneaker collectors and fans will get a pair. But they don't do it because then the luxury feeling or the acquirable feeling of you attaining something limited goes away. That's why they keep releasing limited quantities. And they ultimately know that the products that they sell 80% of it will go up onto reseller sites, and resellers will end up making a profit, whether that's individual resellers, whether that's stores, whether that's marketplaces. They know this full and well. And at the end of the day, it's an opportunity cost. It's either we release triple the amount of quantity and make more profit, but then this will only last 2 or 3 releases, and eventually our products will sit on the shelves. Or we can do 50 releases, or with a very low limited quantity, and keep the hype up, keep the brand up, and if these resellers want to profit, that's fine. We still, at the end of the day, selling out.
So you're 2 years into this, Adnaan, and you were a collector yourself. Do you still think that a marketplace is the best way to make the most of the opportunity that you spotted commercially?
Yes, I do think that, the reason being that we do not set the prices on our marketplace. That's the thing about marketplace, right? The marketplace has no say in what you choose to sell for. That way, the way of doing that ensures that anyone who purchases an item purchases it at the lowest price that's possible. Stores will set a markup, will set a price, and that's it. With us, if you choose to sell your sneaker for 1,000 or 10,000 or 5,000, eventually you'll see the average market price, and eventually buyers will determine that, okay, this is actually the true fair value of the sneaker. I will buy it for that. And that's the number one reason I think that marketplaces are winning over any other method of acquiring limited edition goods, is purely because it's fair. It's open, it's live, you can make any bid of your choice, you can sell for any ask of your choice, and you can choose to accept or decline at your own volition. I think that's the main reason and the key factor into why marketplaces are winning and other stores are not.
When you're introducing a new category or uploading items for sale, is there a catalogue that you look for? For example, say you moved into another category like art, how would you know which paintings to be as the limited edition ones?
Yeah, it's a good question. So to find out exactly which products are selling the best and which ones will actually ultimately become limited edition and make resellers want to sell, at the end of the day, it just comes down to knowing your market. So with sneakers, we know that Nike and Jordan is the number one seller, whether it be with us or any marketplaces. We know Yeezy is number 2, and we know New Balance and Puma are not up to the same level. So in that aspect, if we're adding 100 products to a collection, we'll make sure that at least 60 or 70 are Nike, Jordan, and Yeezy, and the rest 30 would be the lower tier brands that aren't reselling as well.
Yeah. So, but I was kind of wondering that, like, so say you want to be that premium luxury drop section website marketplace for people reselling their items. For example, say I'm a collector and I have a few paintings from well-known artists, and I know that you've got an audience who's interested in collectibles. I would need you to have already a photo of my item there in order for you to accept my item. I can't just go and upload it.
Right.
Or can I submit it to you for approval in the future?
Yeah. So we know exactly what drops. Let's just take Nike and Jordan as an example. We know exactly what drops they're going to do for the next 6 months. So we will ultimately put all of those drops onto the marketplace, maybe minus 10% of it that we know won't.
How do you know that?
Won't resell. It's fairly open information. It's not like we're getting insider source. I mean, Nike typically tells you what they're going to release, and most of the time, the drops that do really well are collaborations. So not necessarily with other brands, but with individuals. Like, for example, I'm sure you've heard of the Jordan Travis Scott. So that's a collaboration between Jordan and Travis Scott. So they openly tell you that we're going to do another release in 3 months. So we know exactly what they're going to do in 3 months. We already have it uploaded. And yes, sometimes we get requests from sellers saying that I have this item for sale, it's not available. Can you upload it? We'll do a bit of research and we'll say, okay, we can do it, and we'll upload it.
What's the name of that website in the US that does the drops, and it's more like a live shopping, a live experience? It's premium luxury, limited edition. They do Jeff Koons things and sneakers and all this sort of stuff. We'll have to put it in the show notes, look it up. But
yeah.
Do you know there are platforms like yours that are really popular?
Yes.
And do you sort of, you say kind of to achieve that in the Middle East, but do you think that you can be sort of culty and well known like they are, as famous as they are?
Yeah, I mean that's definitely our goal, and I think the reason that they are so well known in their region is just because not only that they're big in the sense of GMV, but they've managed to get their message across to the youth in a way that that's in sync with their target audience. So that's by using, like I mentioned, brand endorsers that link very closely to their target audience. So if you look at their growth, it mainly comes down to one thing, which is, are they relaying the message to their target audience in a way that resonates with their target audience? So we currently on track to doing that. I think with our new round of investment, it will definitely push things over the edge. In the UAE, we are very well known, but I mean, to become well known across different regions and the world, it's about getting your message out there in the most efficient way.
Is it in Arabic?
We do have an Arabic version of the website, but most of our endorsers are not Arabic speaking.
They're in English. And since it's a .com website, why is it only in the UAE? Like, can anyone buy from anywhere?
So we currently ship to 30 countries. We do have the AE website as well, but we mainly go as the .com website. But we do ship to 30 plus countries. Soon, eventually, in the next, before the end of the year, we'll be shipping to about 52 countries.
Shipping to 52 countries. So, of the say 75,000 sellers, where are they from?
All sellers are based in the UAE.
It's
not 75,000 sellers, it's 6,000 sellers, but 75,000 registered users. So that's all across the world. Majority is in the Middle East, in the MENA region. But in terms of sellers, all of our sellers are local, they're based in the UAE.
6,000 people doing this in the UAE all the time. And how active would they be?
So the way I like to put it is about 80% of our revenue comes from about 10% of our sellers. So we got about, let's say, 500 or 600 sellers that feed about 80% of our volume. So it's these big time sellers that got about 400 pairs by themselves, and they're uploading those 400 pairs by themselves. And then the rest of the sellers that remain of the 80% have one or two pairs. Maybe individuals like yourself bought a pair and now they want to sell it. That makes up about the 80%.
And if you're someone who, say, likes sneakers, but you never knew there was a marketplace in this, and you've got a few kind of retro old sneakers, how do you know that there's value in that and that you could sell it?
Well, I guess the main way that you'd know is you just either go on one of the social platforms like TikTok or Instagram, or you just go to Google and type in the name of your shoe, and then you'll be able to do a bit of research. I think in this day and age we're living off, where no matter where you are, if you're browsing on Instagram or you're browsing on TikTok, or most people are getting the information from search engines like TikTok or Google, it's inevitable to just type in the name of your shoe and find out exactly that this is what it's selling for. It is actually very limited edition, and this is what you could do with it.
Okay. And do you think that will create more of a market? Will more people get interested in becoming part of this marketplace?
Yes. So from 2018 up until now, we've seen exponential growth in the sneaker industry. Mainly it's from people, I'm talking about the seller side for now. It's resellers looking to make a profit, and it's people trying to do it as a side hustle or whatever it may be. But it's mainly those people that were doing certain things on the side, like reselling other items, and they found that reselling sneakers is actually very efficient and a very profound way to make an extra buck on the side. So because of that, reselling has jumped, I think it's like 650% just in the last 4 years. So it's phenomenal.
When you started, there was a big kind of NFT craze, and all talking about the token economy and things like that. And it strikes me that if you're sort of verifying sneakers, that the promise of NFTs and validation and tracking kind of ownership history, that would be something that could match with what you're doing. Did you look at something like that?
Definitely. So yes, in terms of the way you can track ownership history with NFTs is something that we've looked at, but we've sort of rejected it for one main reason. We try to keep all of our buyers and sellers anonymous from one another. So if you buy a sneaker, you don't know who your seller is, and if you sell a sneaker, you don't know who your buyer is. We do this for one main reason. It goes back to what I said. Brands don't like resellers. So if they find out inevitably that you've resold an item, they'll blacklist you. You'll never be able to buy another item again. So we try to keep everyone anonymous on the marketplace purely for that reason.
And when they create their seller profile, they just put in an avatar and a...
No, so seller profile is their actual details. So it's their, because we need to know the method to pay them out. So that's their bank.
You have to do the KYC with them
exactly.
in the back end, but in the front end, what does it look like?
In the front end, it doesn't look like. In the front end, if you're a buyer, you're just coming onto our site as an e-commerce and you buy like normal.
Okay.
That you wouldn't go and check the seller's rating or their past sales, reviews. You don't check any of that. That's the main reason we, as semi-controlled marketplaces, we do all of this for you.
Yeah, so that would kind of naturally fit that if a premium brand, when your audience grows, if they want to do a drop, they could potentially, it would lend itself to working with you directly.
Definitely. It would make a lot of sense to work with us, and we are in talks with smaller brands, not to the tier of Nike and Jordan, but with smaller brands to do their limited edition drops with us. Just because we have the whole infrastructure for it already, it makes sense. They don't have to go build it from scratch. With us, it's just plug and play. Tell us what you're selling. We'll do the rest.
There was a shoe brand under Shaloub, a new shoe brand that they were doing a limited edition drop around now.
Yeah.
Would that be a type of a brand that could do it on Thriller?
That would be. I can give you a name of one brand that we in talks with. So Converse, which isn't into the limited edition space at all, but it's a very well-known brand. Converse has collaborated with a lot of, especially in Dubai, a lot of heritage spaces. So I'm sure you've heard of Ravi's restaurant, and they did a collaboration with Adidas.
Adidas, yeah.
Yes, correct. So that's two brands that you wouldn't even think would come together, right?
Are those being resold on Thriller?
Those are being resold, but
At
we
what
don't have
price?
any exclusive rights. I think a pair is about 1,000 dirhams. It's not too bad.
How much were they at the start? 500?
About 500, yeah. 499, 500.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is that heritage brands, whether that's restaurants or just heritage spaces, are now collaborating with the likes of Adidas, with the likes of Converse. And some of these smaller brands who are doing these collaborations with Converse or Adidas are coming to us and saying that you have the infrastructure, you have the capability to sell our items in the most efficient manner and to make sure that everyone gets a fair chance. Can we do something? So that's something that we're in talks with.
It's quite exciting. So you're a 20-year-old founder, CEO of a $1 million business. Where do you go from here?
Yeah, so from now on, like I said, it's just about getting our message across to our target audience in the way that resonates with them the best. We want to keep working with some of the biggest names in the world. We want to keep switching people over from the traditional way of buying sneakers from US competitors and UK competitors and Chinese competitors. We want to win them over. We want to acquire as many customers as possible. And like I said, in the end, we want to become the marketplace for anything collectible. We don't want to limit ourselves to sneakers or apparel or anything like that. We'd like to be a fully open marketplace to trade anything collectible. And yeah, just be the biggest in the space by doing what I said.
And what does that mean then for you? Do you think, are you in university at the moment?
No.
So you're doing this full time?
Yeah.
And would you like to continue to do this, or do you see an exit in mind? Or?
We do see an exit in mind, but even if there is an exit, I will continue to be on board just because
You're passionate about it.
Yeah, I'm passionate about it, and also I study the industry every single day. I would say I'm not to sound like I know it all, but I'm very well invested in the industry. So I feel I would know the best way to move forward, whether it's with me as the owner or not. I feel that I'm very invested in the industry, that I'm very knowledgeable about the industry, and not to sound perspicacious, but I'm very well known in the industry in the sense that I feel I would make the best industry decisions for the company. Okay,
interesting. And so there's two parts to this, I guess. There's a sort of collectibles opportunity, but then there's the reality of being a CEO of a tech marketplace, and that's quite challenging, right? Because there's lots of costs, there's managing people, there's making market entry decisions, there's marketing, there's things like that.
Yeah.
Is that something that you like doing as well, the managing part?
Yeah, it's it's not something I necessarily enjoy fruitfully, but it's something that I've taken a liking to. It's something that you have to learn to like when you're in a position like that, because if you don't learn how to manage people well, or you learn how to coordinate different tasks, I'm sure you understand that some days you're juggling 100 things at a time and you probably only get about 30 of them done. And yes, you do fail, or you do get rejected a lot, or you do drop the ball a lot, more than you'd like to. But yes, it's something that you take a liking to, and the more you do it, the better you become.
Interesting. And when you take on this new round of investment, would you envisage bringing in someone senior to run it, or?
Yeah, so I'd like to get someone that was ideally at my level or my stage when they were my age. That way, at the age that
Probably few of them.
Probably few of them. But that way, at the age that they are now, the senior age that they are now, they would have accomplished, a lot more than most people. And that way, they'd bring the best insight into the company. I'd also like to get someone that's not necessarily innovative, but someone that's intelligent. Because, and when I say that, I don't just mean the generic version of intelligence, because there's a big difference between innovation and intelligence. We would like someone that's very intelligent, in the sense that the difference between innovation and intelligence is anyone can be innovative nowadays. It's not a trait that people are looking for. So, if we want to get someone on board as part of the team, we're not just looking for a cash cow. We're looking for someone that actually has a vision of taking things from where they are now to where we need to be, and executing that vision in the best and most proficient way possible.
Interesting. And in terms of tech and the decisions that you make, how much of this do you believe that you need to code yourself or have proprietary tech, or how much of this are you looking at licensing software and new features and products all the time?
Yeah, so the initial build of the marketplace was all coded up by scratch. We built everything from the ground up. But now when it comes to the stage of plugins and buying software for marketing purposes, now that we're at a stage where now it's a bit difficult to code that up. So we at the stage now where we are purchasing software to help us with our marketing efforts and UI and UX and just overall easy usability for any user.
And payment gateways and things like that, you use what's in the market?
Yeah, for payment gateway we use Stripe just because they're the biggest in the region, and since they launched here, they have they've made it very easy for startups to integrate with them. So we've been using Stripe for our payment gateways. And
so 2 questions on company structure and culture. Firstly, as an e-commerce marketplace, where did you license the business?
We actually license in Ras Al Khaimah, Rakas.
And when you're doing the investment, will that be at that level, or will you have a holding company somewhere?
No, it'll be at that level.
And then in terms of culture, you have remote developers and engineers, but are you the type of founder who is building a sort of a remote first company, or do you have people getting to the office every day?
Yeah, it's a good question. So we actually started during COVID. So that was at a stage when no one was coming to the office. All work was done remotely. And we found that everyone is just a bit more efficient because they were comfortable working at home. And we've never taken a change to that. We don't have a physical office. We only have our warehouse, which we meet occasionally. Like I mentioned, the warehouse for authentication. But the rest of it is done remotely. People are more efficient that way. People are happier that way. And we can track, nowadays with all these managing interfaces like Monday.com and all of that, it's very easy to track exactly what's getting done in a certain day or a certain week. So yes, we're very pro remote working. We don't see a need in spending X amount on an office when we can put that back into marketing cost or whatever it may be.
It's interesting. It seems to be a lot of young people do prefer that as well.
Yeah, younger people, and also I'm sure you also you also find that if something happens, hopefully not another pandemic, but if something happens where we all have to start working remotely, you catered for it. It's not like it's a step back. It's you on the same level. We're not regressing at the time like how we were at COVID, where people were just fumbling around. They didn't know how to get things done. Now we're at a stage where it's actually very easy for any company to work remotely. Obviously, there are some exceptions, but for the most part, it is quite easy.
Brilliant. And is there any kind of company that you look up to that you sort of want to follow the path of, or either in the region or internationally?
Yeah. So in terms of companies that we've taken a liking to in how they project themselves and how they acquire their customers, one of them is Farfetch.com. So Farfetch is a company that yes, we're competing with, but we do recognize their strengths, and we do recognize that they do some things very well. And then there are certain marketplaces in the UK and US that we look up to as well. But again, we don't just look up to them. We analyze what they're doing very carefully. We track what they're doing, and we try to compete with them in the best way possible.
Interesting. And your view of the region as being a good place to be running a business right now?
Yeah, the Middle East region. I don't have to tell you about Saudi's exponential growth. UAE's growth we already know. So like I said, it was actually between two choices, Saudi and UAE, on where to start this up. And we just found that UAE has a very cohesive startup environment. So obviously I've lived in Dubai for a very long time. So we started up in Dubai, but I feel that anyone who's looking to start up a tech startup, I wouldn't waste your time in the US or UK. Middle East is the place to be.
Brilliant. Well, that's all we've got time for. Really positive
Yeah.
note to finish on. Thanks for telling the story of Thriller, and I'm
Pleasure.
sure there's bright things to come.
Thanks a lot, Richard. Pleasure talking to you.
You too. Thank you.
Pleasure.
Wow, I always get impressed when young people have a cool head on their shoulders and are building something interesting. Well done to Adnaan and his team of Thriller. That's THRILLER.me. You can go check it out and maybe even buy a sneaker or a collectible of your choice. Thanks again to Ali Khalil, as ever, who produces this show, and Shahir Al-Kindi with the support of Shahir. It also goes on Love in Dubai on the website. You can watch it on Smashy.tv streaming service, or if you're listening, as most do, on a podcast app. There's obviously Spotify, Angami, and Apple, but in the region we've also got Podio, where we host our podcasts on Podio as well. And we'll be back next week at 11 o'clock on Friday with a live show. It goes out on Friday afternoon, and you can follow all the business stories, as this is a Smashy business production as part of the Augustus Media Podcast Network.